Hello, Bookaholics. How are you today? I hope you're ready to get rip-roaring in this new year. I've got a special guest today. I'm sure many of you have heard this. Everybody wants to be a boss. Everybody wants to live out their dream. But lots of people usually don't really get anything done, and they just spin their wheels or just keep dreaming. But our guest is a teenager who made one of her dreams come true. She wrote a book, and we'll take a look at Sarah Humphereys and her book after this. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
How's it going?
I'm good.
Good. So let's dive right in and let's paint a picture for the listeners and viewers out there. You are a teenager. You are 17, 18?
I'm 17.
You're 17 years old, and you attend high school in your state. And what grade are you in?
I'm a senior.
You're a senior in high school. Let's see now. What was I doing as a senior in high school? I was a good student. I was a cheerleader. I was very involved. I had a little job at a local grocery store, but I didn't write a book. And that's quite an undertaking. And let's be clear to the audience, this is not a picture book. This is not a 10-page book, or anything like that. This is a book, B-O-O-K, okay? And so before we get into the actual book, I really want people to see that it doesn't matter what your age or where you're coming from. If you want to do something, do it and just stop dreaming about it. So tell me about your teenage life, your activities. What do you do?
Well, I don't really have any extracurricular activities. I just write. I do Dungeons and Dragons a lot with my friends. And that's what I do after school.
Oh, really? I didn't even know. I guess I shouldn't have, since that was so hugely popular. I guess I didn't still think that it was still existing. I hadn't heard anybody speak on it in quite a while.
Yeah, well, my friends play it a lot, so I play it, and that's the only extracurricular activity I have right now. I just read and watch TV and write.
Well, that's okay. I mean, but still, there's a lot of people that would just be watching TV and playing Dungeons and Dragons and not write. Okay. Writing is a daunting activity. I mean, some people that's triple your age don't even sometimes want to write a note. So, it's hard to find the words. It's hard to find the inspiration. Then sometimes, I know this is something I have a problem with, and I'm not a writer of novels and books. I'm a writer of, I've done copywriting for business for many years, and I do other types of writing. But a lot of times I think people are daunted by writing a book because they're afraid of the emotions that may come about by putting pen to paper. And that, I will say, scares me. That frightens me about writing a book, because you really have to let it all out, whether it's yourself or through your characters, So writing a book can be very daunting. So what would make you, a teenager, want to sit down and write a book?
Well, I've kind of been writing anything for my whole life.
Oh.
I've just, ever since I had access to a computer and I could learn how to type, I was typing short stories and books and writing them out on pieces of paper and stuff like that. It's just something that I've been doing for my whole life, and it's really cool, and that's just part of me. I like telling stories.
Oh, wow. And you said something that was very cute. You said you said something, ever since you had access to a computer, and it's like, you've had access to computers the whole time. Whereas, a lot of people Another daunting thing is that some people listening to this podcast, there were no computers and they had to write books by longhand on yellow
Well,
notepads.
I did do that when I was like 4 or 5. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So this has been in you since you were 4?
I have no idea how my brain thought that I could just write words on a sheet of paper and tell a story. It's just been me.
Wow. Now let me ask, are you a big reader?
Yes, absolutely.
You're a
Yes.
huge reader. Your parents, are they one of them or both of them are huge readers?
Well, not really. They don't like sit down and read a book, but we do have a whole lot of books in our house, just
Okay.
bookshelves everywhere. And so, yeah, when they had time, they were reading.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Well, that's part of the inspiration to get young people to read. You know, they usually gain that inspiration from a parent. And I know my 2 grown sons, one is 23, one is 18, they got the inspiration from me about reading books. Now they read differently. You know, whereas I read historical fiction, contemporary fiction, and all of that, mysteries, thrillers, and this, you know, my one son likes to read a lot of nonfiction, business minded books, and my other son reads comics and graphic novels. So, you know, when they were younger, and you had the teacher have the reading challenges once a month or whatever it was, and you know they were kind of maybe sometimes stalling at reading. It's just that I wasn't figuring that they should read something else other than what I wanted them to read. And once a parent kind of releases that, and you know, a teacher told me one time, reading is reading. And once I accepted that, my kids just blossomed and they picked up their own books that they really wanted to read. So that's just a little bit of sidebar advice to parents out there who think their children don't like to read, but maybe they're not reading what they want to read, and reading is reading. So yeah, so with that, what do you like to read?
Well, I like to read anything that's fantasy. That's my
Okay.
genre. I don't read realistic fiction or historical fiction or stuff like that. On nonfiction, I just read fantasy, specifically anything with dragons in it. I love dragons a lot.
Oh, guys. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure I was speaking to someone else a little earlier this year, and I can't remember the phrase or the event right now, but as soon as I'll find it, I'll send it to you. It was something involving dragons, and it was an event. And it took place in Atlanta, I believe it was. So I'll let you know about that. That's probably something you want to check out. But
Maybe.
okay, so yeah, so you saying fantasy is your jam, historical
Yes.
fiction is my jam. I am trying to, in more ways than one, teach diversified reading. And by that, I mean BIPOC authors and their stories to get people to read more of that. But I'm also trying to diversify my personal reading in that I'm trying to add fantasy onto that. Now, I will tell you, I read, oh my goodness, V.E. Schwab, the Addie LaRue, The Disappearing. That's kind of, it was a very popular book, and I can't remember the full title, but that was my first encroachment into fantasy. Now, that might not be your description of fantasy, but this was like, you know, a girl who had been cast by a spell because she asked for it, and she now nobody can remember who she is. Everybody she encounters, they know her for that moment, and then the memory of her is erased from their mind. So that was my first encroachment into that. I put that book down, but I'm trying to reach out to some other fantasy books. There's one that I'm reading right now, Skin of the Sea. It's about a mermaid. So I'm just trying to embrace different reading. Do you have any pointers for me?
Not really. Like if you just I don't know. I usually read YA fantasy, not like epic fantasy or stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But yeah, if you just find a plot that's interesting, you can just pick it up and read it.
Well, who are your favorite fantasy YA authors?
Okay. Well, let's see. Can't think of any off the top of my head. Never ask an author. Okay. Let's see. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I think it's Rick Riordan. I've
seen that name.
He wrote Percy Jackson, and that was my gateway series. So even though he's not technically like YA, I really like his series. And
yes. I remember. I've seen that name, and that was a movie, right? They made
a very bad movie. Yes.
Oh, you said it was bad. I enjoyed it. My sons were younger, and we took them to it, and I enjoyed it because I always liked the Greek gods. I was one of those totally into mythology.
Yeah, I like mythology too. Yeah, a lot. That's why I like Percy Jackson. But okay, well, it's a good movie, I guess, but it's a horrendous adaptation. Just they slaughtered the book. The author read the screenplay and said, if you do this, then the fans will be upset with you and they will hate it. But you can go ahead and do it.
Yes. Well, my youngest son, who's the one that reads the graphic comics and all of that, and he reads, and he tells me about comics. And if your mind, say like mine, is set with Adam West, Batman of the late 1960s, comics has evolved tremendously. And my son being a part of that group of avid comic readers and avid graphic comic readers, they get highly upset when their stories are not portrayed correctly on screen.
Oh my gosh, comic book adaptations.
Yes, I feel you because I hear it all the time about people messing up the comic story, and I guess in your case, the fantasy story. So I get that. And I think the movie industry may be trying to please some of us who are paying for the tickets and don't, they got to make it relatable to those of us who's not reading it at all or can't relate to it at all. And I think that's where the disconnect comes from.
It's a tricky balance to strike.
Yes, most definitely. I definitely believe that's where the imbalance is coming from. Well, so now that we've set the stage about who you are, what you like to read, let's hear about your story. We know as a child that you were already naturally putting words to paper, but you actually went to a workshop?
Yeah, I did. I went to a writing workshop with a New York Times bestselling author, Angie Fenimore, and that was a writing program that I went through for 6 months. And it was basically anyone who wanted to learn how to write a book and hopefully get published. And for 6 months, she taught us how to write books, and it was really useful and cool. And we all had to write our own novels, which was stressful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, you have to come up with an idea now because the program starts in 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
that was interesting. But so at the very end of the program, there was this day called the Crucible, where we all pitch our books to agents from publishing companies. And
oh my goodness.
I pitched my book, and 3 of them said yes. And
I
sent them in, and they said yes again, and now I'm published. So that was cool.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Okay, so let's back up just a tad. The author that sponsors the workshop's name is Angie
Fenimore.
Okay, and what has she written?
She wrote. Let's see. She wrote a, what's it called? Dang it, autobiography, memoir, something like that. It's called Beyond the Darkness. A subtitle, I can't remember, but it was basically her depiction of her near-death experience, and that's how she got to be a New York Times bestselling author. People liked it. So
Okay. Right. People are always intrigued with stories about near-death experiences. That
yeah.
definitely. So she had a workshop that lasted 6 months. This was all online, or
Yeah.
okay. So was this during the pandemic?
No, it was 2019 actually.
Oh, okay. So you all did Zooms for
Yeah, we did
classroom.
Zoom before it was cool.
Yeah, exactly. I did too. I always had Zoom. And I always invested in Zoom. Yay, good decision for me. So, okay, so you all did this all online, and she just did different steps to teach you about character development
hmm
and
Yeah.
all of these type of things. And so, okay, by the end, so what was the story that you pitched?
So the story that I pitched was the book that I published. It was Stone Cold, and it's a YA romance about a medieval kingdom where everyone has to wear enchanted stones that take away emotion. It's like an emotionless society. That's their culture. But there are some people that the stones don't work on, and those people are hunted down and killed. And the main character happens to be one of those people that the stones don't work on. So
Let's see.
this is the cover of it,
Oh my God, the cover is
and the
absolutely
yeah,
beautiful.
and the necklace that she's holding right here. That's
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. I'm going to do another podcast on this, but the design of the book is beautiful. It makes me want to crack it open. So,
thanks.
okay, so let me go back because I was so taken aback by
Sorry,
the beautiful cover.
but
So,
but
go ahead.
yeah. So the main character can feel emotions even when she wears the stones, and that's punishable by death. So she has to hide that fact, and she basically has to pretend to not have emotions. And it's basically her story of her trapped in a palace, and she has to and she's conflicted with her own emotions and what she's going to do about it. And it's a romance.
Yeah,
There's a
that's
love
what I'm.
triangle. Yeah, in a society where emotion isn't supposed to exist.
Right,
That
right.
was funny to write.
Wow, that is really, and you know what? I've never even heard of that concept.
Oh, really?
No,
I
I've
I
never
read
even heard of that
sci-fi, and
concept.
I read sci-fi dystopian, and I can name like 4 books off the top of my head that have that exact same concept that I
Oh,
read specifically. And so that's how I got the idea. Actually, I just thought I like this idea of an emotionless society, but I also write medieval kingdoms and fantasy. So what if I took a dystopian
yeah.
society and put it in a medieval kingdom with a gemstone magic system?
Oh my gosh, Sarah, I see this as a movie. I see it as a movie also. Wow, I'll have to get a copy of that book. I just really like the premise of it. I really do. And so for some people write all their lives and they never get their story idea in front of agents, or they don't know how, or it's just very difficult and they get rejection after rejection. And you had several people say yes. How did that feel?
It was interesting. These were publishing agents that she specifically knew, so
Yes.
we had that credibility with we went through her program, and they knew our writing skills. So she said that the acceptance rate was like near 100%,
Oh
and
my
a
goodness.
whole lot of people who went through the program got published. I I I did get kind of rejected once. Uh, so Richard Paul Evans, the person who wrote, oh dang it, was it Michael Vey? I can't remember. Um, but he wrote so yeah, and his agent was there. So I'm like, oh my gosh, Richard Paul Evans' agent, and uh, and like she was basically critiquing our
Yeah.
pitches, and I said her pitch, and she didn't like it that much.
Oh. Wow.
So that was
But
so that was my one mini rejection.
okay, yeah. Well, that's good because it was like in-house, not with the others
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that were actually going to publish. So, and what's your publisher's name?
It's Morgan James.
Morgan James. Okay,
They're
okay.
they're kind of small. They don't do fiction very often, but it's a publishing house, and I got published, so
And you
that's a
got
win.
that is so fantastic. That's such a great story in and of itself. That's kind of like a mini story about you could write about that, how I got published.
I don't write nonfiction.
Exactly. That is fantastic. And so you've got your first book published. Where do you go from here? You're a senior in high school. Are you going to go to college? Are you going to continue to write books? Are you going to do both? Are you going to study fine arts? What's next for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to college. It would be really nice to study English and keep being an author because I really like it. And a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, you can just go to college and get a science degree or something, so you can get a STEM job." And I'm like, "Well, I did get published, and so I maybe have that starting point. So maybe if everything works out, and I just keep writing books."
There's plenty of fine arts programs out there that that you can study in college, and like you said, writing and English literature and all of these things, that's just right up your alley. So one thing I learned with my sons is that, again, you have to let people do what comes comfortably and naturally to them. So if that's your avenue, I don't see why you shouldn't take it.
Okay.
Now, have you started the college acceptance process, or?
Yeah, I had to put in a application to a college, and it was terrifying.
But guess what, Sarah? It was all on computer.
Yeah,
And my
yeah.
college applications were all on paper.
Okay, fine. Then you had it worse than me. Yes.
I mean, you had to write legibly.
Yeah.
Paper. So,
That would have been awful.
hey.
Oh my gosh.
You didn't think about that part, did you?
No.
But anyway, well, I'm sure, Sarah, whatever you choose to do, you're going to be successful. And I just champion anyone that takes the bull by the horns and does what comes naturally to them and live out their dreams. Sarah, it was fantastic to talk to you today. I really appreciate you and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Wow, that was fantastic. Sarah's information, her social media handles and everything will be down below in the show notes. And the information will be also on the YouTube channel down below. And wow, that's just tremendous. So if you're stumbling and trying to figure out what to do, take a cue from our teenaged published author, Sarah Humphreys, and get going. Thanks for joining Bookaholics today. We appreciate your support.
Thank you for joining the Bookaholic podcast. We appreciate your support. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, follow us on Instagram at True Bookaholic. You can also email us at readingjunkie@book-a-holic.com. Don't forget to support your local library and independent bookstores.